Mahalo for tuning in to Island Focus and joining me in meeting Jessica Lani Rich, who's the president and CEO of VASH, the Visitor Aloha Society of Hawaii. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us, Jess.
Thank you, Lila, so much for inviting me on your show.
You know, your organization is critical, actually, at this particular time. Would you tell us a little bit more about VASH?
VASH is a nonprofit agency founded by the Rotary Club of Honolulu in 1997, over 23 years ago. And our main mission is to assist visitors who have been victims of a crime or other adversity, and to provide assistance so that when they go home, they have a positive memory of Hawaii. And I've been the president and CEO for the past 16 years.
How exciting that you have the opportunity to be of service in such a big way.
We show up when people least expect it. They're thousands of miles away from home. They don't know anyone. They don't have any local support. And they're just so grateful that someone is there for them.
Can you share with us what that looks like now?
Absolutely. Before COVID-19, the majority of cases that VASH handled were like thefts on the beach or car break-ins, medical emergencies. All that changed when COVID-19 hit our islands. And on April 6th of this year, we were asked to be the COVID-19 Flight Assistance Program managers. And what that means, Lila, is that, as you know, COVID is widespread, not just here in Hawaii, but in the world. So we have a lot of outsiders that are coming to Hawaii. And our role is, once they are screened at the airport, if they do not have a place to quarantine for 14 days, if they don't, they ask us to help, and we send them back home with Aloha.
Can you share a little bit about lessons learned about resiliency and finding hope again? Because as we reopen Hawaii, as we move into the world again, there's a lot of stress and anxiety that people are feeling.
Absolutely. And, you know, when you talk about resiliency, Lila, to me, that word means, you know, when someone is going through a trauma or a tragedy, they think, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get through this. But there is hope. Life does get better. And I'm going to tell you two quick stories. One is a man named Gary. Gary was in the ICU unit at Kaiser Medical Center a couple of years ago. He was a Rotarian. He was going to die. We visited him for a couple of months, and lo and behold, he got better. Do you know that 3 years later, Gary came back to Hawaii to run the Honolulu Marathon? I mean, think about it. Here was a man who was in intensive care. We were called in to say goodbye to him and his family, and he comes back to run the marathon? Talk about resilience. And another quick story, Lila, is there was a man who, sadly, his wife passed away at one of our hospitals here, and I was with him at the time, and he thought, my life is over. I'm never going to live again. 5 years later, he came to our office with his new wife, and he was happy and living a fulfilled life. Talk about resilience.
And you help people get through the moment as well as look forward to something in the future.
Speaking of that moment, absolutely. Let's go back to the man who was in the intensive care unit. He thought, I'm never going to make it. We put up pictures on the wall of him running because he was a Honolulu Marathon runner. And we said, Gary, look at those pictures. Because if you focus on the wellness and not the fact that you're in the intensive care unit, you will be that runner someday. And lo and behold, we reminded him every day, and he did come back. He even made a kind of a corny joke. When he came to run the marathon, I invited him to our Christmas party, and he looked at my board member who was a funeral director, and he said, Jerome, I'm really glad you didn't get your hands on me. So yes, there is life after trauma.
So as we wrap up our short conversation today, what parting words can you give to our viewing audience so they can also take this period of time in stride and move through the stress?
The words that I can give to the viewing audience is to remember one thing. As you are going through darkness, of course, the Bible, and one of my favorite quotations in the Bible is, this too shall pass. That all of us should remember, even though there is darkness, there is rain, there is thunder. After that, there is a rainbow. There is hope and there is life after COVID-19. And I think we need to focus on that, because if we focus on we're never going to get over this, then it will just bring us down. But if we focus on there is resilience, we will get through this. Life will get better. It will, and it does.
And just one last question. How do you keep that energy and that passion and that faith that you have that it will get better?
Because I've seen literally hundreds of people over the years, Lila, that have been in a tragic situation, losing a wife, losing your health, losing your purse and all your ID, losing your wedding ring when you're here on your honeymoon, and they come back to Hawaii and they say, my life is wonderful now. Life does get better, and we have to remember that it will, and have hope and faith that everything, the storm will pass and the rainbow will come.
So what I hear you saying, Jessica, is that we really all need to remember how many situations we have survived and how thriving we can be as a result, and not take ourselves so seriously that we get so stressed that we can't handle our lives in the moment.
Absolutely. Our attitude will determine our future.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Lila.
You just had the opportunity to meet Jessica Lani Rich, who's the president and CEO of VASH, the Visitor Aloha Society of Hawaii. Mahalo for joining us.